Hello everyone, a warm welcome. This is a follow-up to the last video that I made. I'm actually going to be talking about children in the ancient world as discussed, as relayed through these ancient texts. I thought it might be interesting to ask the question, okay, Greco-Roman culture and Judaism and scripture, and how you can actually see, and I think this is fair to say, you can see a difference here in the way that children are talked about, are portrayed, and the loving, this very strong loving tendencies in a lot of Greco-Roman literature towards children, and the strong bonds that parents had for their kids. You find this across the mythic literature. It's discussed by philosophers and so on as well. But we don't really have that much in the Old Testament, like the multiple, was it 42 books of the Old Testament? I think it's quite a few, 43, I can't remember exactly. But it's quite a few. And I just wanted to basically lay this out here because you get, the Old Testament, God has many problems, many failings, shall we say. But we see here, it's a story and a subtle conveying here of an attitude overall towards kids that the Hebrew Bible tends to really not talk about much, and when it's talking about discipline and hard, strict upbringing. And this is where we get these lines of it's stone your children if they are unruly or behave badly. Terrible thing. And we still hold on to these tropes and these kind of these edicts here and this morality today. Of course, we never practice this, but it is extremely worrying that people still believe this nonsense. And this is why I made the video yesterday. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And I am always struck by this tension between Jesus saying really lovely things and wonderful moral stuff, and then him going off the rails completely, off the reservation, saying things that do at least appear strongly to be extremely despotic and worrying. There are parables, Luke 19:27, where he's saying in a parable, just bring those in front of me and slay them if they don't believe in me. Mental stuff. And then of course him affirming that it's all right that Hebrews here and Jews and the Pharisees are hypocrites for not obeying those commandments. It's subtly, maybe he's saying that these things shouldn't be upheld, but that's not what we actually get from his words, because he says don't change one iota, and you must observe the law until the time comes when the big revelation is made and the end of time comes. So let's have a look at this anyway. The way culture treats and describes children is deeply revealing. In the Hebrew Bible, children are often bound up and with covenantal duty, obedience, and the justice of God, with tenderness appearing rarely beside harsh laws and divine punishments. In contrast, Greco-Roman literature and inscriptions frequently display open affection for children, highlighting parental kisses, tears, and commemorations of sweet sons and daughters. Both traditions reveal ambivalence. Okay, so Judaism stresses discipline and obedience to God, while Greco-Rome, despite its literary tendencies and tenderness, allowed practices such as infant exposure. So when children were deemed sickly or had maybe deformities, they were often left in the wilderness for the gods, essentially not very nice at all. But that did happen in Greece and Rome, so that obviously there are still problems. The New Testament adds another layer, with Jesus speaking of children in ways that seem to move beyond the Old Testament's harshness. Okay, so there are a few cases here where it seems to certainly be showing care and respect and love for like away from the Old Testament tendency to rip babies apart with lions and stuff and all this crazy stuff. So, children in the Hebrew Bible and Judaism. The Hebrew Bible contains powerful expressions of parental grief and love, but it also codifies some of the harshest laws towards children found in antiquity. Okay, tender moments. So here are some of the tender moments. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his sons. Genesis 37:3. His grief when Joseph is thought dead shows raw parental attachment. So there is some of this, but it's from people. David cries, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would I had died instead of you." So 2 Samuel 18:33. Few ancient laments are more poignant. So these are just the poignant ones. There aren't many, really, in multiple books. Prophet, and they're from people. Prophets employ parental love to describe God's own compassion. Okay, so this is the God now saying he has compassion for Israel, while at the other, in other instances, not really at all. As a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion. Psalms 103:13. Psalms is quite interesting and good and philosophical. Can a woman forget her nursing child? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. Is Isaiah 49:15. Hosea portrays God teaching Ephraim to walk, holding him with cords of love. Isaiah 11:1-4. So there is this spoken more from prophets, not these direct commandments from God according to these scriptures. Now the harsh laws. Penalties, capital penalties, Exodus 21:15 and 17, and Leviticus 29 describe death for striking or cursing parents. So if you curse a parent, the penalty could be death. The rebellious son law, Deuteronomy 21:18-21, commands that a persistently obedient son be stoned by the community. So this is persistent disobedience. But still, what happened to grace and forgiveness? Discipline as love. Proverbs insists that withholding the rod is hatred, while beating a child saves him from Sheol. Proverbs 13:24, 13 and 14. And Sirach 30 reiterates, he who loves his son will whip him often. Okay. Sacrifice, and remember the rule of thumb law comes straight from, for your wife, comes straight from the Old Testament. Sacrifice and expendability, yes. Abraham's near sacrifice of Isaac here, Genesis 22. We all know that story. He almost slays his son. Imagine what his son must be feeling if this is indeed true. Of course it's not. Jephthah's slaughter of his daughter, Judges 11. Terrible, and that's real. Like this actually happens as a sacrifice, because Jephthah wins against another tribe, and he says, "Whatever comes out of my house first, I will slay it for you, God." And he does this, and God don't come down and say, "Hey, it's all right, dude. Don't worry about it." And Ezekiel's reference to child sacrifice, of course. Ezekiel 20, 25 and 26 show a culture in which children should symbolize obedience to God even unto death. You need children here. Children as objects of divine punishment. God punishes David's infant son of David's sin with Bathsheba. God punishes David's infant son for David's sin with Bathsheba. 2 Samuel 12, 14, 18. Achan's whole household, including sons and daughters, are executed for his disobedience. Joshua 7:24-25. Exodus 25 states that God visits the iniquity of the fathers on the children of the third and fourth generation. Absolutely horrendous. Prophets speak of children perishing as part of judgment. Hosea 9:11-12. Lamentations 4:10. Isaiah 13:16. So it's just infanticide straight up. Balanced Judaism values children as blessings, but their lives are bound up with parental obedience and God's justice. Love is real, but often mediated through discipline and the covenant. So if he doesn't like you, your children might well suffer, according to these books. Greco, of course, Jesus never says anything about switching this up or changing it, or maybe, there's a new covenant right now, so we don't have to do this anymore. That's never what Jesus says. Greco-Roman attitudes towards children now, interesting. Greece and Rome, in Roman literature and inscription show a strikingly different emphasis. So this is pagan cultures. Children are often presented as the objects of visible emotional affection. So Hector and I'm sorry about some of these words. I've not seen them for a long time, or I don't know them. Astyanax, Iliad 6, Hector and Astyanax. Hector kisses his infant son before going to battle, a scene of tenderness amid epic battle. Odysseus and Telemachus. The Odyssey 16, father and son embrace with kisses and tears after long separation. Euripides, Alcestis sacrifices herself for her children and might live with her father. So her children might live with her father. Plutarch, here, philosopher, commentator, historian, on affection for offspring, describes mothers smiling and kissing their infants, using these gestures as examples of natural parental love. Amphitrite Stelae, Athens. A grandmother on her tombstone is pictured cradling her infant grandson. The inscription reads, "I held him on my lap when alive, and now dead, I still hold him." So again, this is, generally speaking, the love between people. And of course, we see gods and mythic stories with expressions of love here. Roman examples: Aeneas and Ascanius, Virgil, Aeneid 2. Aeneas, fleeing burning Troy, holds his son's hand as a little Iulus clasps my right hand, following with unequal steps. Again, this poetic language. Cicero, Tusculan Disputations 1:16. Parental affection is one of the strongest instincts of nature. Okay, Seneca, letter 1:16, uses parental love as an allegory for divine care. Funerary epitaphs as well. Roman parents inscribing tombs with language like Dulcissimus Filius, sweetest son, and Charisma Filia, most beloved daughter. Filia, my most beloved daughter. Examples: to Aurelia, my sweetest daughter, who lived 15 years. Okay, harsh realities. Greece and Rome often practiced infant exposure, abandoning unwanted children. This undercuts these literary ideals, but yet the very prevalence of affectionate inscriptions suggests that many parents mourned deeply and saw children as treasured companions. And of course, there are many examples of this. I just picked out a few for you. So the balance is, of course, these cultures combined harsh practices, so exposure and a high mortality rate obviously came with these cultures, with a highly expressive language of love for children in literature, philosophy, and epitaphs. So talking about the Greek and the Romans as well. Now Jesus and children in the New Testament, a few fleeting examples here, most of them from Mark, I think all of them from Mark, welcoming children. I think they're in some other Gospels as well, but this is just Matthew here, Mark. Jesus says, let the children come, let the little children come to me, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven. Exalting their example. Unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Protection of children. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believes in me to sin, it would be better to be drowned in the depths of the sea. That's Matthew 18:6. And reversing status here. In the culture where children had low status, Jesus places a child in their midst and says, whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. So he's saying my name. Doesn't necessarily just mean children generally, but whatever. So on balance, the Hebrew Bible ties children closely to the covenant and discipline with laws that often appear harsh, and stories where children suffer for parental sin. And don't forget as well the many examples of genocidal rage that God inflicts upon peoples who are not, even who are Jews, but who are not Jews as well. The New Testament finally lifts children up as examples of humility and faith, objects of divine protection rather than wrath. And this progression suggests an evolution, for conventional severity through Greco-Roman tendencies to the radical welcome to Jesus. We saw in children the very image of the kingdom of heaven. And it might be that, just as a little finisher here, it might well be that these things are picked up because by this time in the Gospels creation, there has been quite a significant impact of the Greco-Roman world on Christianity. And I do want to stress that it's already been sufficiently removed from these harsher Jewish tendencies here. I just thought I'd put that out. It's just a little aside, really. The next video I'm doing, and this is a series, is going to talk about something quite interesting. I'm going to make it right after this one, and that is something to do with martyrdom and what we've been talking about. So stay tuned, and peace and love.